Hello and welcome to another video from me, Rough Swordsman Wargamer. This time we're playing a purely solitaire game, and it is Mrs. Thatcher's War, the Falklands, 1982. Designed by R. Ben Madison and published by White Dog Games. And if you watched the unboxing of this a little while ago, you'll know this was a gift from my old mate Tony of Tony's Bald Life. I think the dust has settled from Tony's playthrough for me to give it a go myself. So let's get set up. So as you can see, very small footprint, couple of maps, and up here are some of the charts and tables we'll be using. We'll have a look at that as and when. Here we've got the strategic map, and this is showing us the South Atlantic around southern Argentina and the Falklands. Here are 6 sea zones, and these will be occupied, as you'll see in a moment, by these hostile grupos. And these are land-based Argentinian Air Force units, and they'll send planes to fight us over here. And we have to try and stop these grupos sending their planes across with our ships. Here is the larger East Falklands map. And this is the northern half of the island of East Falkland, where most of the ground war took place. And it's divided into 5 regions. You can see here Air Sector A, B, C, D and E. And these sectors will be contested for air supremacy. Also, you can see these little paths. We've got 3 of those, and they're called ground paths. And each little square is called a camp. And will mark the position of ground units. And what's going to happen later on in the game is our ground units are going to land at San Carlos and then sort of move up along these tracks to try and get to Stanley. So let's get set up. First, we're told to place 3 specific Argentinian units in Stanley, and they are labelled BIM 5, RI4 and RI7. Now we take another Argentinian unit labelled FT Merck and place it in Darwin. Next we take these 6 Argentinian units. They've all got little white stars on the back of them. We turn them face down. We're going to mix those up. And we're going to place one on each of the camps which have the Argentinian flag on them. There we are. Game turn counter goes on turn 1 of the game turn track. And the SAS. The BBC News marker goes right up here on 15. And this shows how popular the war is back home. We've now got an Exocet marker, and we have to find out how many Exocets the Argentinians have. For that we have to roll a die. We roll a 1, it goes in the 4 box. A 2, it's on the 6, and any other roll, it'll go into the 5 box. We've got a 4. So, the Argentinians have got 5 Exocets. Now we're going to place 4 Grupo markers on this map. The Grupos have numbers in the top left-hand corner. These are of no significance for gameplay, so it doesn't matter which ones we use. But the 4 Grupos will go into these 4 sectors here. There we are, and the other 6 that are left over go into this box, which represents the Argentine mainland. And as you can see, I've been saying Argentinian, they've put Argentine. I don't think one is more correct than the other, I think. The Argentinians also have a couple of warships, the Belgrano and the 25th of May, and these also go up here in the Argentine mainland box. There are 2 Pucara units, and these go on the Falkland map, And these are counter-insurgency tactical bombers which will hinder ground combat and will need to be got rid of if possible. One goes up here, Pebble Island airstrip, and the other down here in Goose Green. Units that are not yet in play are all placed here. As you can see, quite a few, and these will be explained as and when they crop up. We've got 3 helicopter units here. We've got the KLF, the Pope, the Chilean radar unit, the diplomacy marker, the British stuffed, ships taken up from trade, which will bring in, hopefully, our helicopters, the Gurkhas, Scots and Welsh Guards, the Iwo Jima, and the target air sector marker. Over here we place the British and Argentine ground support markers and the weather marker in the fair weather box. Here we've got the ground forces which hopefully will be landing at San Carlos. And incidentally, we can't do that until at least turn 7. But we've got the Royal Artillery, 4.0 and 4.5 Commando, Blues and Royals, the 4.2 Commando, and 2nd and 3rd Para. But for now, they'll sit and wait up in the Ascension Island. There are Harriers in the game, and here's some examples. And they've got HH or HI on them. HH means they're a Harrier from the Hermes, and HI means they come from the Invincible. These two with the names on, one from each of the ships, are the sort of ace pilots. 6 HH units, including Morgan, and 4 HI units and Ward will go into the total exclusion zone. And the 7 left over will join the troops up here in Ascension Island. To keep the Grupos at bay, we'll need some ships. So as I mentioned earlier, there's the Hermes, the Invincible, and 2 escorts, which will join the Harriers in the total exclusion zone. And lastly, there are various Argentine planes with different combat numbers in the top right-hand corner, and some of them have roundels, as you can see. And those are part of the mainland, but they have to be picked randomly. And in the rules, it says you can put those in a little cup face down, so you don't know which is which. But I'm going to be using the Bag of Doom, which you may have seen in some of my other games. And that, I think, is it. We're ready to start. Now there is a detailed sequence of play, which we'll be using. But also, I suggest you download the errata for the game. This is the important bit in my rule book anyway. This is different and updated. The rest, though, tends to be okay. But I download this and check your rule book. Now, just to reiterate, we've got to get our ground forces landing at San Carlos and then moving up each of these paths to end up at these 3 camps here. Now, we can't do that, or we can't start to do that until at least turn 7. So the Brits' objective in these 7 turns before the landing can occur is to keep these under control, sending them back to the mainland, so they can't send their aircraft over to East Falkland to get air superiority in those sectors. We've also got to try and get rid of some of those Argentine aircraft, and if we can, destroy these 2 Picara units which will hinder the ground units. So as you'll see, these 7 units will be pretty similar, but they are important because we've got, as I say, these objectives which will help us subsequently when the ground forces land. So here we go. First thing is determine the weather. So we'll throw 2d6. And we get an 8. And on here, that says rain and snow. So we move this along here. That will slightly affect things, as you'll see in a moment. Next, conduct SAS raid. Now I'm going through this sequence of play for the first turn for those of you who aren't familiar with the game, so you can see what's going on, but subsequent turns we'll try and speed that up, as there's going to be a few videos because we've got 19 turns to get through. So SAS raid. If the SAS marker is on the turn track in the current turn box, we now move it to the total exclusion zone for a moment until we decide what we're going to do with it. And there's a number of things we can do with the SAS, the most important of which at this point in the game is to try and get rid of these, because they will add a positive DRM for the Argentines against our ground forces. You can see the little +1, I hope, down at the bottom left corner there. So that's one thing we can do with the SAS. The other thing is something called Operation Mikado, where we can try and raid the Argentine supply of Exocet missiles. That can only be done once per game, and you've got to throw a 1. We can turn over one of these to see what it is, to give us a bit of heads up. Later on in the game, we can actually send the SAS to help with one stack of the ground forces. We can spoof, and we can turn one of these Gruppo face down so they can't activate. But I think, as I said earlier, I think what we'll do is we'll try and attack and destroy one of these Pucara units. To raid Pebble Island, we've got to throw a 1 through to 4, so it fails on a 5 or 6. This one is much harder to raid, is only successful on a throw of 1 or 2. So we'll try and raid this one at Pebble Island. So we need a 1, 2, 3 or 4. Three. Success. That has been got rid of, and we can place it up here in this discard pile part of the charts and tables handout. We now have to do something called a saving throw, which will tell us when we can use those SAS again. So we roll a die. Four. That means we can use those SAS 4 turns ahead of this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Next would be unload helicopters from the Stuft or STUFT unit, but that doesn't come into play yet. Conduct diplomatic feint. Now, if this drops below a certain level when we're attacking, we will get negative DRMs. So we need to keep this up here as high as possible. In fact, higher than 16 will give us a +2 DRM when we do our ground attacks. So a diplomacy feint will allow you to place the diplomacy marker on the turn track and will give you a +3 to your BBC News. However, if that diplomacy marker is on the turn track when you're doing ground combat, it has a negative DRM because you're supposed to be going through diplomatic channels and behind their back you're attacking the island. So it's only good at this early stage really to use diplomacy, and this is what I think happened historically, is that before the boys landed at San Carlos there was lots of diplomatic things going on behind the scenes. So it's quite safe to use it now because there's no ground combat. So what we'll do is we'll plop that diplomatic marker on here. That means we can now move this up 3. And I'll keep doing that probably until at least turn 7. so we can keep that diplomacy up in this region here. Next is the Gruppo phase. And this is where we're going to place even more of these Gruppos on the sea zones. So we're going to roll 2 dice. So we can get that in there and you can see it. We've got a 3 and a 1. That means we will place one of these Gruppos in sector 1 with a little 1 die there, and 1 in 3. This has got 2 in. That's the maximum each zone can have. So if we throw a 3 next time and these 2 are still here, we won't put any Gruppo in that zone. Now we can do something. Task force phase. We can attack. If these Argentine ships were in one of these zones, we could send a submarine to target one of those ships and try and sink it. And that's a good thing to do, as you'll see later when these come on to the map. And the way you do that is you sort of send one of these escorts into this area here, which you'll see is used rather a lot, and it's called the trawler, or tug repair and logistics area, or loitering area as some sailors call it. Every time one of our ships does something, it gets sent back here and we can't use it again until it moves back into the total exclusion zone. But we don't need to send submarines, and most of these other things do not occur until later on in the game, if at all, because we have no ground forces yet. But this one, warships and planes, attack Gruppos. Now we've got to keep these down because every Gruppo will send 2 aircraft into the sector they are in. So here we'll have 4 unless we try and remove them. So this is where we can try and do that. We can attack with the Invincible and Hermes. I think that's what we'll do. We'll attack with the Invincible here to try and get rid of one of those, but they have to take along 3 of these Harriers to support it. And that means the pool of Harriers in the total exclusion zone goes down, and you can't use them over here in the British Air asset phase, which you'll see in a moment. We don't use the ones that are named because these are ace pilots and they have special abilities on this map here. The problem with sending an unaccompanied carrier is that one of the results of this engagement could be it's sunk by exocets. So what we need to do is send an escort with it, and if we get that result, it at least won't get sunk. That is bad news if one of the carriers gets sunk. There is a plan B with the Iwo Jima, but that takes time for that to come into play. So we're going to attack those 2 Gruppo there, and I think we could take a chance, and I tend to early on in the game, is just send the Hermes maybe here and 3 Harriers and the escort there. So a bit chancy, but we're going after 4 Gruppos, which would be great. That means the Argentines cannot send so many aircraft across to the East Falklands here. Right. The way combat is resolved is to throw 3 dice and check on the task force engagement table. So we're going to throw for the Invincible. So let's get up and have a look at the table. There we are. Let's try and get this so we can see it. 3 dice. Oh, not bad at all. Hold on, here's the other one. So we've got 16. And this is a great result. Place Group O in mainland and if possible move one random Argentine plane from the mainland to the repair pool. Place ship in trawler box. Reduce exocet total by -1 and raise the BBC News by +5. If Argentina has fewer than 2 exocets, treat this result as no contact, just like this one here. Right, let's do that. That's the best result we could get. So it says place Group O in mainland and if possible move one random Argentine plane from mainland to repair pool. Good. So this Group O goes back to the mainland, and if you remember from earlier, we've got all those Argentinian planes in the bag of doom. We're going to pick one at random. Excuse me. Here we go. And we got an A4 Skyhawk. Not very powerful, that's their combat value there. But the thing is, it is out of play for this turn because it's in the repair pool. The Invincible has done its job and so goes into the trawler box. We reduce the exocet total by 1. BBC News up by 5. Well, it can only go up 1. It's at the full whack now. It's at 19. Very successful first attack by the Invincible. Now we've got the escort. And what I'll do, rather than keep moving up to the charts, you'll have to trust me, I'll read them out. But first we need to see if we can get that in shot a bit so you can see the dice rolls. So what do we get? $10. Oh, there we are, 10. And 10 on that chart says Argentine Group O driven off by British carrier. Oh, that's unfortunate. If carrier is firing, place Group O in mainland and do all the stuff we did before. But if escort is firing, no effect on Group O or the BBC. Place that ship in the trawler box. So that didn't do quite so well. We've now got the Hermes. We must not throw 5 or less. We don't really want to throw a 6 because that will reduce the BBC total down. So let's see what we get. 11 and 11. Group O retreats under British anti-aircraft fire. Place Group O in mainland. So this one goes back. We grab another plane that they can't use this turn. And what do we get now? We get a dagger. Slightly more powerful. So that goes up there. Can't be used. The Hermes goes into the trawler box and raise BBC by +1. We don't need to. Last one is the escort. As you can see, the carriers have a slightly better chance of success if they throw a 10. But if the escorts throw a 10, as you just saw, nothing happens. Right. Oh, what we got here? That's a 10. Case in point. Argentine Group O driven off by British carrier. And just like earlier, no effect if the attack was done by an escort. So in she goes. Well, we got rid of a couple. And all the rest in that sort of phase doesn't apply. We've done this one. The Wargamer isn't out yet. So it's now the Argentine Air Assets phase. Now it says determine target sector. And this indicates to the Argentine Air Force which air sector is strategically more important this turn. Once the ground forces are on, you determine the target air sector by how many units are in each of these air sectors. But for now, as there are no ground forces, it will go in Sector E, down here, which I'll show you in a moment. Here is that target air sector marker in Sector E, which makes sense. Everything's happening around Stanley at the moment. There are no ground forces, no boots on the ground yet. Now, We're going to throw a die and see which one of these are going to place their aircraft first. Let's move that down a bit so you can see. 5. So sector E with the 5 here, we're going to place those first, and then we move down and up and down again until everything is placed. This does make a difference as the game goes on. Also, just for this first turn, we have to deploy Argentine planes. And that's a bit of a pain because each sector is going to be seeded for this turn, if you like, with an aircraft. So we'll do that. Another A4 there. Another dagger. A4. Italian MB339. And another A4. Luckily, we only do that for the first turn. We've rolled to determine Group O priority. It's going to start with this one. And now for each Group O, we're going to put 2 Argentine planes in the corresponding air sector. So we've got 2 coming into sector E. Got 2 coming in there. We've got a French SE and a dagger. So they go in here. And now we move down to here and it says to target sector. And the target sector in this case is here. So they're going there as well. That's 2. Got a Canberra and a Mirage. So getting quite packed down there in sector E. And we've got 2 in sector A. A couple of those. And lastly, 2 in sector C. Oh, nearly out of planes. Oh, luckily we didn't get the Argentine ace. Got an A4 and a Mirage. And that goes in, what do we say, sector C. There we are. There is an optional rule where these Skyhawks, these A4s, aren't placed when it's rain and snow, but I won't be using that. Next, British air assets phase. We can launch our Harriers from the total exclusion zone. What we've got to be careful of, we've only got 4 Harriers, is that in a moment there will be the Argentine Junta plan phase where some of these planes are going to be moving about and you're thinking, yeah, we can attack these. So we've got to bear that in mind and you'll see how that works, and after a while you'll get to know what's going on. So let's pop. That's only 1, isn't it? We're going to take a chance, so we're going to put all the Harriers here. There are no stacking limits. And the 2 aces. Now the good thing about the aces is there is an ace reaction part of the air battle procedure where these can move to another battle. Having a bit of a brain burp there. What I was hoping to do is to try and attack both of these sectors, because if we can get 4 or more aircraft in the repair box, we can start to discard them, remove them from the game and put them here. And I was thinking, yes, we've got the aces, and the aces have the ability to move to any other sector, even if they've had a battle, and attack something else. But they can only move to sectors where it is contested. And at the moment, this one, this one, this one, and this one are all controlled by the Argentines. What I should do is I'm going to put one of those in there. Now that's contested. Now we're going to have a battle there. And if we're successful here, we can move these two aces over to here. So sorry about that. So now we're happy with where the aircraft are going to the next phase, which is the Argentine Junta plan phase. Now, as I said earlier, some of these Argentine planes have roundels on them. Here we are. And these are affected by this next die roll. So we're going to roll a die and see what we get here. 4. 4 is Air Force Plan A, which is down here. Brigadier Lamidoso, the Air Force Chief, uses his assets more aggressively. All roundel planes on East Falkland move to Air Sector A if there are British ground forces on the East Falkland map. No, there aren't. Otherwise, they move to the target air sector, which is here. So all those with a roundel will move. Well, that's all of these. Look, if I'd have known that. And one here. So that's that. Now we have to do the Argentine reaction. And we'll roll on here and see what we get. And that's a 5. And I won't pretend to try and pronounce that, but it looks like an opportunistic objective. Move all eligible planes to the target sector. Now, this is the ace I was talking about, the Argentine ace, Donadil. If he's on the map, you're told what to do with him, but he isn't on there. He's still in the bag. So, move all eligible planes to the target sector, which would be here again. Now, eligible planes are those that aren't in contested air sectors. So at the moment, it's just this one. But the Argentines have to leave 2 aircraft in that sector to control it. So they can't move any of these out. These can't move out because they're contested. Right, that's that done. Now, it's the air battle phase. So first thing is to determine sides. We are the attackers, the Argentines are the defenders. We now look to see if either side can call in ground support. We can't because that only occurs if we control these settlements, which have this little icon here. Of course, there are no ground forces on the map yet. We have naval gun support over here. No, that's not going to happen yet. And indeed, any ground forces on the map. So nothing for us, but for the Argentines, we look in Air Sector B and see how many ground units and or Picara they have in that sector. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This can only go up 2, so they get a +5 to their combat strength in a moment. This is where the ace reaction occurs, but no, they're staying there, those 2 aces for the moment. If Donadil is on the map, we have a look and see what happens to him, but no. We now add up the total strength points of each side, and all the British Harriers are 7, so that's 21. And we have a 6 here and a 5 here, so that's 11. Now we have to work out the percentage. This is a bit different. So like you do normally, you work out the ratio of the attacker and defender and then turn that into a percentage. And this one works out at 190%. If we look on here, we have to come down to the one below. So we're at 150%. And here are the results. Dogfight, exchange, defender breaks off and we can pursue, or defender eliminated. So ideally, we'd like to roll a 6. Thank you very much. Here we go. 5. Defender breaks off and we can pursue. Now, Breaking off means they're trying to run for home, and for the Argentines, they're going to break off this way, back towards their coast. The Brits, the Harriers, if they have to break off, will go towards Stanley. So, they're going to break off into Sector A, and we are going to pursue. Thank you very much. We'll give it another go. And we now look at the new ground support that the Argentines get. Of course, we still don't get any. But this time in Sector A, they've just got the one. You see, good idea to get rid of the Picara there. So they're only going up to a +3. That makes it a little bit better for us. We're still on the 150%. I think. Or has that brought us up to 200%? 21 to 9. Yeah, 233%. So we are now on the 200%, even better. So a 5 or a 6 would be ideal. Although, if the defender breaks off again, as you can see, they can't go anywhere. So they will end up in the repair box. So looking good for the Brits. 5. Defender eliminated. And in the rule book, it gives you an explanation of all the results here. So defender eliminated, all defending units are eliminated, and the attacker wins the battle. So off this one goes to the repair box. We've now got 3 in that box. We need 1 more to be able to discard one of those. So the next battle will be over here. So once again, we go through the procedure. The Brits are the attackers, Argentines are the defenders. Ground support, nothing for us, but just the 1 there. Excellent, so that stays on the 3. Yeah, I think that's right. Now the aces can react, and these can move across to this sector to help out with this battle. There's only one caveat with that. If the Argentine Donadil ace is on the map, our British aces can't leave, enter or pass through the sector that he's in. He's not on the map, so we're going to move these over here. So again, we're 21 to 4, which is like over 500%. So we're up here, as high as we can go, 400%. Looking good. It's a 1. It's EX. That's exchange. And exchange says, count the number of aircraft strength points on each side of the battle. Ignore ground support. So 21 for us, 1 for the Argentines. The side with the lower total is eliminated. The winning side removes at least an equal number of aircraft SPs, which is this number, of course. So this one is eliminated, and we have to remove the same amount. Well, we can't, we've only got a 7, so we remove that one. Eliminated doesn't mean they are destroyed. They have to be discarded to be destroyed, if you like. So our Harrier goes into the repair pool as well. That is the end of the combat in the air. And at the end of that, we have supremacy in Sector A and D. And the Argentines control C and E. Not important at the moment, but again, when these troops come on in turn 7 or later, the amount of air sectors we control will be important for things like supply. Next would be ground war phase, but no, nothing occurring there. So we move now to the logistics invasion phase. We first look for victory. No, that's not happening. This is where we would do Operation Sutton, which would be the landing at San Carlos, but no, as I keep saying, not until at least turn 7. Now we reset, And again, as you'll see when we get the ground forces on, they can be out of supply. This is the part of the turn where we can reset that, turn them back the other way and put them in supply. Any groupos that were flipped by the SAS can be turned over as well. The ships taken up from trade would be used now, but no. Units in the trawler box now move back into the total exclusion zone. Any ships and planes that are on the sea zones here or the landing zone are moved back, so we can move back our Harriers. So they're ready for next time. And then it's Admiral Anaya. This is where he might deploy these ships. We're going to roll a die for each one and see which sea zone they're going to be placed in. This is where it starts to get a bit hairy. They're both the same, so we're just going to roll 2 dice and see where they go. If we get doubles, by the way, they won't come on the board. They'll stay in port here in the mainland. Oh, 3 and 2. So one goes here. And one goes here. When we have a ship in a sea zone with groupos, we can't attack them. These are protecting the groupos. So we may want to think about maybe trying to get rid of them. If we get rid of one of these ships, the other one is a little bit scared to come out and it's harder for it to come on to the sea zones again. The next part that's of concern to us is the Argentine parts shortage. This is sort of simulating the shortages that the Argentine Air Force had. And as I said earlier, if we've got 4 or more planes in here, one of these can be discarded, never to be seen. Hopefully, again in the game, although there is some headlines which might bring one of them back. But for now, we picked the lowest one. We can't pick a roundel one or the Argentine ace. So it's this one with a strength of 1. That goes there and is out the game, hopefully, for the rest of it. And now the planes in the repair pools have a chance to come back into play, but that depends on the weather. The British, though, always have an advantage. They can bring back one plane from the repair pool to the total exclusion zone, regardless of the weather. So that one can come back now. However, the Argentines have to look at the weather, and that dictates how many they can bring back into the bag of doom. It's rain and snow, isn't it? So, all planes in their respective repair pools return to use except for one, which is random. This would apply to the Brits as well if they had loads in the repair pool. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. This one stays. The other 2 back in the bag of doom. If the Pope's in play and the game turn is on the same space as the Pope, he would be removed. We also remove the diplomacy as it's on the same space as the game turn. We would remove the Chilean radar, which hopefully we'll see later on. That's a good one. And now we do the news headlines. And we roll a die and add the game turn number onto the die roll. So we've got a +1 there. Let's see what we get. 5 + 1 is 6. And now we look on the news headlines table. And 6 is this one here. And we're going to look at see what all these are. And these are in the rule book. So we've got sub threatens carriers, peace plan, Pinochet's revenge, US sends mixed signals, EEC, which was the old name for the EU, NATO allies. Right. First one, sub threatens carriers. The Argentine submarine San Luis is reported in the area. Move one British carrier, your choice, from the TEZ box to the trawler box. It can't be used next turn. Britain launched some 200 anti-sub torpedoes, never hitting a sub but killing numerous whales. Oh dear. So we will have to put one of these carriers, doesn't matter which, we'll put the Hermes in there. But it does mean, as I say, we can't use it to attack these next turn. Next, peace plan. The UN makes another peace proposal, trying to square the circle between macho Argentine demands for the islands and Britain's insistence that the islanders be free to choose their own future. The player must either reduce the BBC number by 3 by rejecting the peace offer, or place the diplomacy marker on the next turn box on the turn track. Agree to waste time discussing it. Well, it makes no difference. We might as well, because, as I said earlier, the only time the diplomacy marker is going to make a difference is when we have ground troops, so we might as well put it on. We could put it on the turn ahead, as it says. We are at full strength, so we don't need it, but you never know. Next is Pinochet's Revenge. We like this one. In exchange for cheap aircraft from Britain and relishing the opportunity to humiliate Chile's hereditary enemy, Argentina, Chilean dictator General Augusto Pinochet rattles sabres, causing panic in the already overextended Argentine military. If the headline die roll was even, no, it was odd, the British player may move 3 Argentine Randall planes from anywhere to the Argentine repair pool, no. Or, if the die roll was odd, then if there are any sea zones containing at least 1 Argentine Grupo, the British player may place the Chilean radar marker there. This marker adds +5 to the die rolls for British ships attacking Grupos in that sea zone next turn. Well, this one's protected at the moment by the Belgrano, but we've got a couple here. So, what do you reckon? There's the Chilean marker, which will give us a +5. Let's pop it there. US sends mixed signals. Factionalism between the pro-British Secretary of State Alexander Haig and the pro-Argentine UN Ambassador Jean Kirkpatrick infuriates British Foreign Office mandarins and baffles world opinion. Roll 1 die for each faction. If Haig's roll is higher, add his roll to the BBC News. If Kirkpatrick's roll is higher, subtract her roll from the BBC News. In the case of a tie, add Haig's roll because Reagan breaks the tie. So this is good. We've got this on just in case this is going to move down. So we'll use the red die for Kirkpatrick, the yellow die for Haig. Oh, we get it anyway. 5 we would move up, but no, we're at the maximum there. And the last one, EEC, NATO allies in inverted commas. So this can go very good or very bad. So we're going to see which one of these allies in inverted commas is going to do something. So we'll just roll a die. 5. West German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt backs Britain. Remove the diplomacy marker from the map if it's there. Oh, okay. And that's it. That's the news headlines. Next is air scramble. The British planes return to the total exclusion zone. So all our Harriers here will return over there. And those are our 2 aces. We'll keep them separate. And all the Argentine planes will return to the bag of doom. There we are, as if by magic. So that's the end of the turn. We move the game turn marker up and we get on with turn 2. Well, I think we'll leave it there. This video has gone on for quite a while. Hopefully in the next videos we'll be able to speed up the turns. What I'm hoping to do with this series of videos is to record them one after the other rather than waiting to see if I've played it correctly. So if there are any little misplays, let me know, put them in the comments, and I can make note of those for everyone in the description of the next video. Well, there we go. This has been part 1 of a playthrough of Mrs. Thatcher's War, the Falklands, 1982, designed by R. Ben Madison and published by White Dog Games. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, and you haven't done so already, it would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel. Really does help. Pushing the like button of the video helps as well. And if you want to be informed of other content the channel uploads, push the bell. Leave a comment. What do you think? Have you got the game? I understand it's quite hard to win, so we may not get to turn 19, but let me know what you think. I love to read them. Thanks as always to my subscribers. Thank you. And one last thing, if you want to support the channel a little bit further, well now you can buy the channel a coffee. And all those coffees go towards maintaining the channel and allowing it to upload new content. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description, and thank you. So until next time, as always, you take care and goodbye.